voluntary scheme to scrap heavy vehicles. It's voluntary that is confusing me. A large number of CV owners, if they are small fleet owners, will perhaps not oblige if you gave it a voluntary status. But nevertheless, this would be good news for CV makers like Ashok Leyden. Well, let me straight away go to the guest who's waiting here with us, Aashish Somaiyaa of Motilal Oswal. Manages a lot of money, the equity funds of Motilal Oswal. We were just counting out the numbers, 7,500 crore in equity mutual funds and about 8,000 crore in PMS, so large portfolios over there. Aashish, pushing you straight away into the frying pan, it is voluntary, but do you think this is good news for CV makers?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we have to see the entire details of what it is. I agree with you that voluntary, but if there are incentives given, then obviously people would want to take benefit out of it. And plus, there are always these rumors that eventually one fine day there'll be a deadline and you'll have to scrap all these things. So you better make good of the voluntary bit. So I'm sure it's going to help.
No, I would assume that the overhang on Delhi, literally, and I don't mean metaphorically, is so severe that you will have to take this decision sooner or later. Just a minute, the markets have opened and expectedly a little bit in the red. No, green on the Sensex. Okay, these are wayward moves. You can't have a 1.5% fall. There's nothing that drastic happening. I think we'll ignore it for the moment. It's just very, very wayward moves. The rupee had a slightly better day yesterday. The dollar was cheaper by end of day. So we'll just watch out for the rupee opening and then get back to our guest. Okay, slightly weaker opening for the rupee, but just a few pies, about 10 pies more expensive dollar. Not to bother at this point in time. I think we'll read out the opening rates a little later since we should allow the market to settle down. Back to Aashish. Well, Aashish, what's holding this market is domestic institutional buying. How is it looking at your end? Are retailers still coming in and giving you SIPs or new money in your focus funds?
No, so SIPs are rising significantly month on month for us as well as for the industry. So the industry recently crossed 1.2 crores number of folios and it's just under 3,900 crores a month. And I would urge everybody to look at it as a generational shift, because if you see 10-12 years back, the RBI used to issue GOI relief bonds and they gave 11% risk-free and tax-free. A lot of youngsters like us, when we started our jobs, say 18-20 years back, it was normal to open a PPF account, go to State Bank or the post office. And nowadays I find youngsters, they open SIPs. So my sense is in a year from now we'll be well over 5,000 crores a month.
Okay. So the recent fall in the market, from the July highs, has not deterred retail investors?
Oh, no, not really. I think our investors are reasonably seasoned now, and whenever the market falls, the first instinct is to take benefit of the lower levels. When we were 9,000 some time back, we were 6,700 in February, and so these are attractive levels from that perspective.
Aashish, what's the big India call that you're making in 2017 for equities? Because the dollar index has gone up, the US is pushing for growth, that could result in money going to the developed economy assets. The rise in US rates could limit the rate cuts that we could see here. There's demonetization. All these things seem to be a lot of, put overhangs in the Indian equities.
So a lot of events to watch out for, I think, irrespective of what the expectations have been. I mean, starting 10th, 15th January, you will see results, then the budget, and then there'll be elections, and then there'll be US to watch out for. So very, very eventful first half for sure. But 3-4 trends are definitely going to come out of whatever happens with demonetization. First, obviously, is that there's probably a shift from unorganized to the organized sector. Second, the government becomes a very big investor. And thirdly, liquidity being high and rates being low. That is, these are 3-4 things which will matter, and I think they are going to be good. The tax net widening, a lot of people are focused on the existing stock of black money. Not enough people are focusing on the fact that new generation of black money is under severe threat. Owning so much real estate and gold is suddenly not cool. Interest rates are very low. So you'll actually see people moving money into equities. That's my sense. And lastly, when you look at US, FIs pulling out money, in the last 10 years, I have seen it happening 4 times. FIs have always pulled money in response to some trigger in the international market, but when the dust settles, eventually you get back a lot more than you lost.
Okay, Aashish, do you expect consumption to get a fairly longish knock? There has been a loss of wealth effect maybe for some people. So would it be 2 quarters? You all have a lot of consumption stocks in your QGLP, your focus.
Yes, if you see clearly the guys, where there is a lot of luxury buying or the top end stuff, obviously that is going to take a knock. There's no debate about it. But if you look at, let's say, guys like, four-wheelers, which are largely 80%, 85% financed, that is one thing. Second, if you see wealth destruction for a lot of people, officially or unofficially, is wealth redistribution for a lot of people. And, ultimately some 14-15 lakh crores, which was lying under someone's pillow and lying in someone's drawer, is back into the bank. So getting money into the market, velocity increasing, all those things are going to matter significantly. So our sense is good part of non-discretionary consumption will come back in 3 months to 6 months at the most.
And not all bankers expect that money to stay anyways. Yeah, Reema.
Yeah.
Which are the sectors that you would recommend and avoid in 2017?
See, typically, at our end, we are not really a sectoral investor in that sense. I mean, we run certain
broad
filters.
themes to avoid then.
So, see, broadly speaking, at our end, if you ask us, we are not heavy into cyclicals. We are not heavily into metals, because metals, clearly you get confused with what is investment buying and what is so-called Chinese GDP effect, etc. So we stay out of deep cyclicals. We stay out of metals, typically speaking. What we actually do focus on, if you really ask me, is financial services significantly. A good part of financial services, that is one part. Second is we are pretty much into autos, right? There is a knock at this point in time, but our sense is next 3 to 6 months is going to be a significant turnaround. Plus, most people are not realizing that, a couple of percentage point drop in interest rates. Like already, if you ask me, 20-year mortgage rates are down to 9% right now. Probably they'll head lower. So these are some areas that, we would look for.
So housing finance would be a big theme that you would take.
Definitely, yeah.
Okay. NBFCs have actually not been the fashion in the last quarter after such rara days in the first 3 quarters. That still is an attractive space?
So, people have kind of tended to paint everything with a broad brush.
Yeah, there are kinds of NBFCs.
Yeah, there are obviously types of NBFCs that one needs to look for. So I think what we have in our portfolios are pretty resilient in that sense. We're not into the microfinance space, or we're not into the cash dealing kind of segment at all.
Okay. Oh, well, I think that Spark news has finally arrived. This is some other news that's coming in for Spark.
Just read it out. The company has received a complete response letter, or CRL, from the US FDA for their NDA or new drug application for Zelpros. These are eye drops, I think, BAK-free eye drops. CRL references the recent inspection of Spark's Halol manufacturing site by US FDA and indicates that satisfactory resolution of the deficiencies identified during the inspection is required before the final approval. There are no requirements of any additional data from the US FDA in the CRL. Spark had out-licensed Zelpros to a subsidiary of Sun Pharmaceutical Industries in 2015, June of that. So they've just said that we have to wait for some satisfactory resolution of the deficiencies identified.
Okay, I'm not able to make sense of much of this jargon, so maybe we should toss this across to Ekta. Ekta, what does this mean in plain English?
Okay, Lata, what this means is that I think Zelpros is actually allowed in terms of Sun Pharma and Spark. Now, to give you a background, it is basically a new drug application which Spark has filed for, which is basically the R&D arm of Sun Pharma. So Sun Pharma was going to manufacture it at its Halol facility. Now, the reason why it had reached a roadblock was because of the Halol 483s which had been received in 2014, which then turned into a warning letter in 2015. Now the complete response letter references the recent inspection, and the CRL, or the complete response letter, is basically an official document from the US FDA with regards to Zelpros and the approval process of Zelpros, which is basically an eye drop being studied by Spark. So what it says is that Sun Pharma's Halol manufacturing site by the US FDA, the recent inspection that took place, which we've reported on, which just took place and concluded, and indicates that the satisfactory resolution of the deficiencies identified during the inspection is required before the final approval.
Okay, Ekta, does it mean that Zelpros can be manufactured at Halol? Is that the short point?
Well, Lata, we have to basically read what the CRL says. But what it means right now, and I have to get a few more details on this, is that is that I think it should possibly be a final approval for Xelpros.
Okay.
There are no requirements in terms of any additional data from the US FDA in the CRL. So I think this should be positive news for Sun Pharma. Give me a couple of minutes to find out more.
Yeah.
But overall, Spark and Sun Pharma should be the two stocks in
advantaged.
focus.
Okay, Ekta, we'll allow you to go back and work the phones and get from Sun Pharma what exactly it means. But certainly it means something positive. Even if it is not the ultimate step, it looks like the penultimate step at least for the manufacture of Xelpros.
And
at
we're not
the Halol
asking
facility.
for more data points.
Yeah, the fact that we don't want any more data indicates that, we may be satisfied. But, okay, let's get an expert on this. Vishal Manchanda, the pharma analyst at Nirmal Bang, has joined us. Vishal, does it look like good news for Spark and Sun that they can start manufacturing Xelpros sooner or later at Halol?
I'm sorry, I have not covered this news well.
Gone through this.
Xelpros.
Okay.
So,
all right. What about the other Sun news that we got earlier today? That Sun has decided to buy a company for, what is that, oncology product company for $175 million.
Odomzo.
Yeah, so that's Odomzo is a drug that is indicated for basal cell carcinoma. So I think this drug would be competing with Roche's drug, which is Vismodegib. So that drug is doing about $200 million annually across the world. So and growing at about 50%. So I think at $175 million, I see potential in this opportunity. So there is money to be made by Sun Pharma. There is upside.
Okay.
If we compare the Novartis...
Is it making you raise the price of Sun Pharma? Are you adding to their EPS?
I don't have a rating on Sun Pharma now.
Okay. But you think the news is positive?
Yeah, this is a positive. If we do a cross-trial comparison of the data we have seen for this Sonidegib, which Sun has acquired from Novartis versus the Roche's compound, Vismodegib. So the cross-trial comparison suggests that the Novartis compound is a shade better than the Roche compound.
Okay.
And being a carcinoma, being an oncology drug, the pricing power should be good for Sun.
Okay, Vishal, we leave it at that. Thank you so much for joining in. Aashish, you want to quickly come in on the pharmaceutical pack? Sun Pharma, Lupin, all down 20-30% in 2016. Is that a space you look at? And will it turn around?
We do have significant holdings across our portfolios. What used to be actually a favorite has suddenly turned into a contrarian, but it still looks good.
Okay, so you're still holding on. You've not reduced your exposure.
All right, Aashish, we will leave it at that. Thank you very much for dropping by in our studios. Have a great 2017 if we don't meet.
Thank you very much.
All right, so that's a positive view on focused stocks from Motilal Oswal. We just have to get to FNO strategies. Chandan Tapari.